Welcome back. As a child, Tom loved the hustle and bustle of the city. There was one place, however, he found intriguing yet terrifying: the subway. It was the perfect blend of human-made technology and the unyielding, almost sentient darkness. As an 8-year-old, he would follow his father into this underground labyrinth and cling to him tightly, every strange face, every flicker of the lights, feeding his fear. One night, as Tom and his father waited for their train, he spotted something unusual. A train, not on the schedule, pulled into the station. The doors slid open, revealing an empty carriage. Yet, in the silent, cold air, he heard the faintest sound of a child's laughter. This peculiar occurrence would recur on various nights, the midnight train arriving exactly at 12 a.m., echoing the innocent laughter of a child. Tom's father never noticed, lost in the pages of his novel, his senses dulled by the late hour. As a grown-up, Tom became a daily subway user, but he could never shake off the memory of the midnight train. Soon, he began to notice a disturbing pattern. Some passengers would start humming a haunting, childlike melody out of the blue, their eyes gaining a faraway look. Their humming would continue until they abruptly stood up and got off at an unfamiliar station. At first, Tom did nothing, watching in bewilderment as his fellow passengers hummed the strange tune and got off at an unknown stop. He was unsure whether to follow them or let it be, attributing their behavior to some new viral trend he hadn't heard of yet. As the incidents began to increase, curiosity gnawed at him. A strange pull seemed to emanate from the forgotten station where the entranced passengers disembarked. Eventually, he gathered enough courage to follow one of the humming passengers. He trailed behind, keeping his distance until they reached the unknown stop. As he stepped off, he watched the passenger disappear into the shadows of the deserted station. Bewildered and shaken, Tom tried to report these incidents to the police. They, however, dismissed his claims. They suggested that city stress was making people act strangely and recommended that he take a break from the late-night commutes. Frustrated but undeterred, Tom knew he had to take matters into his own hands and unravel the mystery of the spectral midnight train and the haunting melody. Intrigued by these strange happenings, Tom found a forgotten subway map in the city archives. He noticed the station where the mesmerized passengers got off was marked on this map, an obsolete stop no longer in use. One midnight, armed with courage and curiosity, Tom made his way to the phantom station. It was there he encountered the spectral figure of a child, Sam. Sam led Tom to a hidden trapdoor where he found the spirits of the missing passengers, trapped and yearning for release. The source of the eerie laughter and the haunting melody was this lonely spirit. Sam was a boy who had lost his life on the subway tracks years ago. Now he was reaching out for companionship, luring unsuspecting passengers to him with a tune only they could hear. Understanding Sam's tragic story and loneliness, Tom made a pact with him. He offered to visit Sam, providing the companionship he craved if he stopped influencing the passengers. The spectral child agreed, and the melody ceased. As a young child, Emma was both awed and terrified by the subway's eerie sounds and grimy walls. A fear born out of a chilling experience one late afternoon when she heard a train wail, much like a tortured beast, followed by an eerie silence. Emma and her mother were the only ones on the platform, the darkness outside the station's open mouth making the fluorescent lights seem unnaturally bright. Now a woman, Emma couldn't shake the lingering dread of the subway. One evening, the sterile subway tiles reflected an image not of her own but a distorted figure, flickering like a broken transmission. It looked somewhat human but twisted and deformed, its mouth moving silently, mimicking a silent plea or a whispered threat. Whenever Emma looked directly at it, the figure would vanish, only to reappear as soon as she dared to look away. The figure haunted her daily commutes, appearing in the train windows, on the shiny metal poles, or in the reflection of her own eyes. Over time, Emma found herself drawn to an abandoned part of the subway, guided by a trail of faint whispers. It was as though the spectral figure was leading her to this place. There, she found a rusted control booth with a neglected lever. The lever seemed to call to her, and with a deep breath, she pulled it down. Suddenly, the booth came alive with flickering lights and the grinding sound of shifting tracks. As she turned to leave, she heard the long-forgotten wail of a train echoing down the tunnel. She fled the scene but couldn't shake the feeling that she had awakened something sinister. Emma's meddling with the lever had a chilling consequence. Each night at midnight, a phantom train would now arrive at her usual platform. The train, unlike the usual modern carriages, was ancient and grimy. Its lights flickered, and it moved eerily silent except for the occasional wail. Unlike the normal subway cars, this train was always empty. The chilling figure Emma had been seeing reflected everywhere was now in the train, beckoning her to step aboard. The final day, driven by her mounting fear and desire for answers, Emma boarded the phantom train. As she took a seat, she felt an icy chill pass through her. She turned and came face to face with the spectral figure. It was the ghost of the conductor who had died many years ago in a horrific accident involving the very train she was sitting in. The conductor's spirit had been trapped in the subway, creating the phantom train to seek help. Emma, with her unusual ability to perceive the spectral figure, was the first to notice his desperate pleas. The conductor begged Emma to find his remains, lost in the crash, and give him a proper burial so that his spirit could finally rest in peace. Emma agreed to the conductor's plea, and after a grueling search, she managed to locate his remains buried deep in the abandoned section of the subway. Following a solemn service, she noticed the reflections returning to normal, the phantom train no longer pulling into the station, and the dreadful wailing coming to a peaceful end. Emma continued her life, no longer haunted by spectral figures. She would always remember her experience and hoped never to hear the wailing of the phantom train again. But deep down, she knew that the subway held many more unseen tales, ready to surface when the time was right. Young Billy was never quite comfortable with the subway. The sound of the rushing train echoing through the tunnels, the sight of countless strangers with weary faces, and the omnipresent yet undefined fear always made him uneasy. However, it was the late evening commute that filled him with the most dread. As the sun set, a particular subway car would arrive. It was no different from any other, yet something about it felt disturbingly wrong. Billy once dared to step inside the chillingly cold car, only to find it strangely devoid of life. The usual hustle and bustle of passengers were replaced by an oppressive silence that seemed to swallow all sound. As Billy grew older, the fear of the subway never left him. However, he began noticing something even more peculiar. A spectral figure of a woman, dressed in old-fashioned attire, started appearing on the platform at midnight. She was always alone, waiting for a train that never arrived. Billy found himself drawn to her tragic and longing gaze igniting a desperate curiosity in him. He tried speaking to her once, but his voice seemed to pass through her, swallowed by the same ominous silence that haunted the subway car of his childhood. One fateful night, he decided to approach her, only to have her vanish right before his eyes. He was left alone on the platform, the lingering scent of her antique perfume the only proof of her presence. Billy's encounter with the spectral woman sent him on a mission to uncover the subway's eerie past. Through old newspapers and city archives, he discovered a tragic tale of a subway accident that occurred decades ago. The last car of the midnight train had derailed, plunging into the depths of an unexplored tunnel. The train and its passengers were never recovered, trapped forever in the dark subway network. As he delved deeper, he learned that the woman was the wife of the subway's engineer, always waiting for her husband's train that never returned. The ghostly subway car he had entered as a child was the very car that had plunged into the abyss. Haunted by this revelation, Billy sought to free these bound spirits. He embarked on a perilous journey through the forgotten tunnels. After a harrowing search, he found the remnants of the crashed subway car. Inside the wreckage, he found the remains of the passengers. He worked tirelessly to bring the remains back to the surface, giving them a proper burial and releasing their spirits from the tragic subway car. With the spirits finally at rest, the spectral woman ceased to appear. The chilling subway car no longer arrived at sunset, and the oppressive silence was replaced by the ordinary sounds of life. Billy could finally traverse the subway without the eerie presence of the past haunting him. While he was relieved, Billy could never forget the tragic tales hidden in the dark depths of the subway, forever a reminder of the unseen horrors lurking just beneath the surface of ordinary life.